Yeah, ready to go.
All right, welcome in to Chicago Hockey Radio. Second episode. We are live on YouTube. Welcome into the program. I'm joined by host Justin Lynch. No Lee Grossman today, so just the two of us
Yeah,
for
just
our
the two of us.
just the two of us. Yeah, no. Appreciate everybody that listened to the first episode, that watched the first episode. A little bit of a rocky, stream by myself, but guess what? Today we have Raven in the building, so I don't need to be on the ones and twos today. But it is a big day in Blackhawks land, so we knew we had to be here live for the people. So
Absolutely.
welcome into the program. Day two, show two of our 2024-2025 hockey season. And the Blackhawks have a new captain, Justin. It is Nick Foligno, tabbed as the 35th captain in Blackhawks history. I read that, and I could not believe that it was 35, first of all, but he does take over for Jonathan Toews, first captain since then. We talked about it on Monday a little bit, how the consensus seemed to be that it was Bedard that we thought would get this. But, I'm going to throw it over to you in a second here. I just, today is the day. Like this was the announcement we got this morning. What do you think? What are your thoughts off the hop?
Well, I'll be honest. I wanted Bedard to be captain, but I didn't necessarily think it deep down. I'm not surprised it's Nick Foligno. And you know what? I can't complain about it. I want to complain. I want it to be Bedsy. I think it's his team. I think he was ready to be captain. I know a lot of people thought otherwise, that he's too young, but Johnny was in his second season, only a year older, as was McDavid Crosby. They were 19. I went through all my reasons for why I thought Bedard should have been captain. I don't need to rehash it, but let's talk about Nick Foligno today. It's a deserving pick. He's a 36-year-old. He's been a captain twice before. Especially, I remember him being captain of the Blue Jackets and did a really good job with that organization. And last season, even though the Hawks didn't have a captain, it was pretty clear he was the de facto captain of that team. I mean, every time he watched every shift episodes and the post game reports, like he was always the guy in the locker room talking, trying to rile the guys up. And it was a tough season, but Foligno was always there. He's a very good leader. It's very clear. You can see that. Very good with the young guys, and bringing them along and making them feel comfortable. He's just really good with that. So I'm not surprised by the pick at all. Again, would I have liked it to have been Bedard? Yes, but I can't complain. I mean, I think it's the right pick in the short term, and his contract runs for 2 more years, so it actually works out nicely, the timeline. If you think about it, 2 years, he's going to be 38. You have to think he probably retires. Maybe he doesn't, but then Bedard will be 21 by then. It'll be coming off his ELC, and by that point, hopefully sign for 8 more years, and then he can take the C at that point. Have 3 years of experience, be ready to go, be under the tutelage of Foligno for 2 more years, and then he could take the C at that point. So no, I think it's a good pick, and yeah, I can't complain.
Were you surprised at all? Like, is that the emotion here with this with you, or is it just kind of like this is the decision that they came to? You know, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. I was kind of expecting something this week too, because last year they announced right before training camp that they want to have a captain, and today is literally the day right before training camp, which starts tomorrow. So I know we'll be hearing something soon. And yeah, like while I kind of expected to be Foligno. I know I didn't really say that on the Monday show. We kind of want it to be Bedard, but like deep down, I kind of knew it was going to be Foligno. It makes sense in the short term. I kind of Lee mentioned this in his show. Like it is definitely like in the Davidson game plan. Doesn't like to rush the young guys and shoulder them, additional responsibility. And maybe there's an argument for that. Maybe it's a good thing to not have that pressure on Bedard for 2 more years at least. Maybe Foligno's captain for longer, but I'm assuming it's just going to be these next 2 years. He's probably done. But yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I'm not that surprised by it. Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I like the move. I, I, I think when we talked about Bedard, and I know that it should be about Nick Foligno today, and it is, but I think we know what we're getting from Nick Foligno, which is much the reason probably why he was named captain is
yeah,
because there's not going to be any sort of surprise here with what you're getting from Nick Foligno. There's going to be nothing really that he needs to grow into. He's already a 17-year vet at 36 years old who's been a captain of Columbus before, and this guy's been a leader in a lot of older locker rooms before. So, you know what you're getting here. I
Yeah.
guess, part of my surprise a little bit on the clip that they posted on social media of, the event last night that they did where they announced it. They announced that it would be the same group of people wearing letters as it
Yeah.
was last year. That was
Mm,
what was said by Kyle Davidson. So, what that means is that Bedard's not even going to be wearing an A
yeah.
on his
That,
chest, which feels a little odd to me.
yeah.
But I do. No, you know what? I don't actually. I don't understand it. I don't really understand it because this kid, you guys convinced me honestly last week when you were saying that he is the leader of this team. Like he is the one that drives the bus here. Even if
Yes.
Foligno's got the letter on his even if he's got the letter on his jersey, he is the one that is pushing this team forward, the one that's like getting his teammates engaged in practice and pushing them to levels maybe that they aren't accustomed to, and the ones that are going to have these players, pay more attention to like things like defensive detail. If Bedard is working on stuff in his own zone, then there's really no excuse for some of these other players, right, to not be doing those kinds of things too. I don't know. I guess it's just a little odd to me that you're not going to have an A on his jersey. Maybe that it's like a slow build. It's a slow burn to get to the point of, where he does end up having the C on his chest, where maybe it is just an A to start now, or nothing now, and then an A next year, and then maybe the C after that, and you're working your way up. I thought the kid was ready. You guys convinced me of it, and I don't know. I feel like he's maybe getting slighted a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Bedard, I don't think he'll mind it that much. I think he's probably content to not have to shoulder that responsibility for the next 2 years. And I think he knows this is his team. I think the letter doesn't really change that, let's be real. But I think what you said is very true, though. He does drive this team. I mean, Foligno might be the locker room guy, but if you look at that 1 month stretch last season where Bedard was injured, this team had no life. There was no heart. There was no soul. There was nothing. Like when Bedard's on the ice and playing, like you could just see he riles his guys up. The team rallies around this kid. And he leads by example. He's always the guy, like I said in the last episode, he's always the guy who's last off the ice in practices, shooting pucks, working on his game. He inspires guys, I think, even including Foligno. So yeah, I think not giving him a letter, you could have at least had an A, that's true. But then you have to strip it from somebody, and who do you strip? I think like Murphy, he has I think 2 more years on his contract, but he's also the longest tenured Hawk. Are you really going to take the A away from him? And Seth, they just gave it to him last year. I think Bedard is more worthy of the A than Seth, but they're not going to, they just gave it to Seth. They're not going to take it away from him when he's here for 6 more years on his contract. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it would have been nice to see Bedard have an A, but it's like, then who do you take it from? And I don't think that Kyle would have been comfortable doing that. So, yeah, I think the move is 2 years from now when Foligno probably retires, then yeah, then Bedard likely takes the C, but maybe they don't. Maybe it's longer down the line, like Matthews in Toronto. Who knows? But no, I think he was ready. I think that might not be the consensus opinion, but it is what it is. I think Foligno in the short term right now is the best pick, and I think you're going to continue to see that this season. He's a great, like you could definitely tell, like he's just great with the young guys, great with kind of building this team up. We're kind of going to slowly bring in these young prospects and players over time, and I think Foligno's going to play a big part in kind of bringing them along and getting them accustomed to what it is to be a pro and what that means. So, no, very excited for that.
And I won't lie to you, I honestly probably would have taken the C off of Connor Murphy. With Seth Jones, you're kind of locked into this guy.
Yeah,
We've talked about it, a little bit, and how people feel some sort of way about Seth Jones because of the cap hit, not really so much about what he does on the ice, but maybe sometimes what he doesn't do, or maybe what some of the other guys do that also make that money, like Cale Makar. Like he's not Cale Makar, sure, I understand that, but you are in this, and maybe that was a Stan Bowman decision, and it was, giving him that contract, but you're locked in with Seth Jones on this hockey club for a long time. So I just think you could have taken it from Murphy and not made it that
yeah,
big of a deal. I personally don't even like, he wouldn't be in my top six on the Blackhawks if I were Luke Richardson. So I think you could have easily taken an A from this guy. It's just a letter. He's a grown man. He probably understands that. Hey, he probably wouldn't have said or thought twice about it if you had said, "Hey, we're going to give this to Connor."
Yeah, and
So
I think like Murphy, sorry to interrupt, but I
no,
think with
go.
Murphy too, it's like we know he's probably not going to be here beyond that contract. I think these are going to be his last 2 years a Hawk. I'd be surprised if he re-upped. So yeah, from that perspective, I would totally understand taking away the A. I just think it's just not really in Davidson's agenda. I think Murphy, I mean, say what you will for his honest play. Like from what I've seen, like he is very active, like in the community and off ice. I think he does have some good leadership qualities. So I understand not taking the A from him, but at the same time, I think you have? Absolutely. I think of the two would have made more sense to take it from him versus Seth. Um, but yeah, no, I think Murphy definitely is in the long-term game plan. So from that perspective, I totally would have understood. At least letting Bedard have the A and kind of really giving him a little more responsibility, but not as much as the C, obviously. Kind of let Foligno really take him under his tutelage. But I think he will anyway. I think the letters don't really change that. I think you'll see that. I think Bedard's just going to get more and more comfortable. Foligno is going to help a lot with that, and I think he's really going to grow him into this role. Because let's be honest, the Hawks might not say it, but like that is what they want. They want Foligno to pass the torch to Bedard in 2 years. That's why they didn't have a captain last year because they wanted to see if Bedard was ready. They thought, okay, maybe he's not ready yet, so we'll give it to Foligno now, and then 2 years of that, and then 2026, it's Betsy's team. I think that's the way they see it. Once he's re-upped, signed for 8 years, post CLC, officially a Hawk for maybe hopefully life, but maybe not. We'll see. The long term, once that's established, then you give it to the Dart. Yeah.
Yeah, my only thing I would say left on this too, and about Bedard too, because I think Flino's the right choice. There was no really wrong choice between the two of them, in my opinion. Excuse me, but um, my one thing too was it looked like before they gave John Tavares, you mentioned Austin Matthews, maybe waiting a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like back when they gave John Tavares the C in Toronto, it seemed like Austin Matthews was going to get that letter, and then he pulled his pants down in front of a police officer in
Yeah,
Arizona
Patrick Kane
right before.
simulator.
Yeah, but like, you know, so the one thing I would say about Connor is he hasn't done anything to not make you believe that he's ready for something like this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there was an inciting incident or maybe a personality trait, or if anything, this kid has been like above and beyond when it comes to how outgoing he is and being comfortable and okay with, a lot of like the car wash stuff that the NHL has him do, the media tour stuff, even if you just think about the lead up to his first game last year and the puck drop with Sidney Crosby and how much attention and how many games were on national television and all that stuff. The game against the Bruins when he scored, and like that was a lot of pressure that he ate up, like a lot of those younger captains we talked about, like the McDavid, the Crosby, the Landeskog, the Tays, those kinds of players. Like, he was a part of that mold, and it's not like he did something egregious like pull his pants down in front of a police officer to do something like that. He's just not that kind of guy. He is cut from that Crosby cloth. Like, he wants to be like, I think he would tell you this himself. He wants to be like Sidney Crosby,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he definitely he's his idol, and he definitely you could see it the way he just prepares for everything, his off-season training and all that. That's what he said himself. Like, he's been trying to get stronger, bulk up, and like just the way he works is very definitely identical the way the Crosby mold for sure, like you said. But I think one thing I just thought of, I think another reason they didn't give Bedard to see compared to if you look back to Jonathan Toews and the way the Hawks were in his second season, it was a much different experience. Like the Hawks were, they missed the playoffs in 07, 08, but they were very close. They were kind of coming out of the rebuild, right? And they're about to be a contender again. But this team, we're still in the middle of the rebuild. I don't really think Davidson wants Bedard to be the captain of this team while we're rebuilding. I think he'd rather him take the C once we're kind of back in contention, which you have to think in 2 years when all the prospects, not all of them, but most of them are on this team. And a lot of these vets that are here now probably won't be here much longer except for those core guys. That's kind of when he wants Bedard to take the mantle. But for now, I think we're kind of in this transitional period from being ass to great. We're kind of in the middle somewhere this season. I think maybe while we're kind of on that trek, let Foligno kind of take over this team while we're rebuilding, bringing the young guys in, and then in 2 years, when most of the guys are here, I think that's kind of when it's Betsy's turn. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I wouldn't have minded it. I frankly would have liked it. I think it would have given us more, fruit for the fodder here to talk about if it had been Bedard and, but hey, it just gives you, more excuse if you're on the Blackhawks, in the front office. You get, like I said, if you do give him an A next year, think of how many more jerseys you can sell. You could keep selling the ones without any letters on it. The next year you could sell the one with the A on it. And then the year after that, you could sell the one with the C on it. So that's a lot of 98 jerseys walking
I
around
think
this city.
I totally agree. I think next year, you gotta give him the A. I mean, at that point, it'll be Murphy's last season on his contract. So at that point, it's like, okay, you're on your way out. Let's get this A to Bedard. We know he's gonna take the C when Foligno probably retires after the season. I keep saying that. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe Foligno plays beyond these 2 seasons. Who knows? But I think that's probably the plan. You gotta at least let Bedard have a season with the A before you give him the C. You don't have to do that, but I think it would help. And plus, like you said, just from the business standpoint, you get to sell more jerseys. Bedard, every jersey out there, like it's going to be the highest selling jersey. So it was this past season. So, yeah, it's more opportunities from that standpoint. And Kane more the for a bit too. So that'd be kind of cool. So, yeah, we'll see what happens from that standpoint. Yeah.
Um, we're going to talk about the Dallas Stars a little bit in our NHL hour with the 2 signings that they made. But also just having come across my desk right now that Jason Robertson had surgery on his foot, and he will miss the majority of training camp. So that's from Taylor Baird.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently he underwent surgery at the end of July that he has not fully recovered yet from. So that's just coming out now. We will talk about Dallas a little bit more in our NHL hour. So back to the Hawks. Training camp roster announced as guys are reporting today for physicals around the NHL, showing up, getting the testing done, getting the testing out of the way, seeing if everybody is fit and healthy and ready to go. And the Blackhawks announced their training camp roster as well for all of their attendees. I don't know exactly how many people it was. I think
It's 53.
53.
53. Yeah.
So there's no like surprises. I don't think the Hawks have anybody on a PTO coming into
No,
camp.
no one I know of. Yeah.
So nothing really surprised anybody. There are some injured players right now. Laurent Brossoit is injured. Artem Levshinov is injured, as we know, obviously. Marcel is injured. Alex Ferrand is injured. Merrick Van Acker is injured. And that seems to be everybody that will not be on the ice come the start of tomorrow. But everybody else should be ready to go. Initial thoughts before, players hit the ice tomorrow.
Oh, very excited. I think definitely there's a few storylines to follow. We talked a lot about 2 of them on the last episode about Frank Nazar and his opportunity to make this team, and also Kevin Korchinski. I think some questions about whether he might start in Rockford or whether he's on the Hawks this year. I think he'll be in the Hawks. And Nazar, I think he'll have a good opportunity to make the team. I hope he does. But I think another player to look out for is Lucas Reichel. I don't think his spot on the roster is necessarily in question, but just the fact that he's coming off a really rough season, you have all these new vet signings. Like he has a lot to prove in training camp and preseason. Like he needs to show up. He needs to earn himself like a role on this team. I don't want to see him buried in the bottom 6. Probably what's going to happen. He's probably going to be starting the bottom 6 to start the season. But that's a guy you really want to see kind of take the mantle and break out the season, similar to what Philip Kurashev did last season. Like you want to see Reichel take that next step and prove he's a part of this. He could be a part of this core. Like he really has no excuses this season. So that's a guy I'm really going to look out for. And yeah, just some other guys like Taylor Hall. He missed the entire season last year. Like how's he going to look? Like is he going to be himself? He's probably not going to be his prime self, but like if he could be just half of that, I mean that's a big boost to this team that nobody's really talked much about. A healthy Athanasiou as well would be huge. He missed a lot of time last season. But yeah, overall, that's just what we hope. We hope the Hawks have a healthier team this year because last year it seemed like they had just awful luck with the injury bug. And we already have some injuries before the season's even started. It is a shame that Levshon is going to be out. Maybe it could challenge for a spot. Who knows? But yeah, hopefully we can have better luck with that this year. And yeah, another I guess thing to talk about is Arvid Soderblom, unfortunately, because with Laurent Brossoit being out, it does mean we're going to have to deal with him for at least the start of the season. So how's that going to play out? Maybe they just play Mrazek all those games. I'd be thrilled with that. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. I think the goaltending should be an interesting situation this year once Brossoit is back, because I do think he could potentially challenge Mrazek, and that could be a good tandem once they're both there. So yeah.
The Hawks will definitely want Laurent Brossoit to return as soon as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned Lucas Reichel, and I guess my thing is just like how much runway do you actually have the ability to give this guy at the NHL level? Sometimes it doesn't look like the boots are there. Not that he's a slow player at all, but just maybe like he is a quick guy. That's not really the issue, but maybe sometimes foot speed itself, like being quick and being fast, are 2 different things. And the offensive skill is there, definitely. I just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like strength down the middle that like he just like can't win a lot of these down low battles, or, a lot of the net front stuff is bothering him. I don't really know where the lack of trust is coming from Lucas Reichel. I just don't really also believe at the same time that the Hawks as this team, yeah, this year is still a learning year, but we've also talked a bit about how much competition. Like
Yeah, there is. There's
there's
much more
there's
competition.
15 NHL forwards
Yeah.
on the roster, and I told you on Monday that I don't think Ryan Donato's going to make this team, or really that I just don't believe he could make the team. I just don't believe that there's a real spot for him on the team.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe like one more trade coming forward to start the season because there is such a logjam. I think if somebody like Frank Nazar has an insane camp and like forces away on the team, then who does that leave out? Because then you have like kind of three guys on the bench. So it's somebody's got to be the odd man out. I mean, you just signed Maroon and Smith; they're here to stay. So it's really Donato does seem like you said he does seem kind of like the odd man out there because you traded for Mikheyev. He's here. So I mean, yeah, I mean he is the odd man out. So we'll see.
But
Maybe they
Reichel's
trade him. Maybe they leave
at
him.
what point
Yeah.
is he like Kaylor Yamamoto? You know what I mean? Who's in camp right now with Utah on a PTO? And look, Kaylor Yamamoto's a fine player. I think a lot of people would say he outperformed his draft selection too, which I think was like 22nd overall, right? And I think Reichel was around there, if I'm not mistaken, maybe
17th.
a little higher, 17.
Yeah, 17th.
Um,
Well, the thing with Reichel is, yeah, I mean, I think they just signed him for 2 years, so I'm not really. They obviously are giving him that trust. I mean, they wouldn't if they didn't re-sign him. So I think he's going to have a lot, of runway this season. I think he's going to have to earn that though. They're not just going to start him in the top six. Like after the season he had, he's going to start lower in the lineup and have to work his way back up. But I think if you start him with Athanasiou, those two have good chemistry. If they get going and he's playing well, somebody in the top six might be struggling. You can always swap them up, throw him in that top six, and that's where you want to see him at some point this season. But you can't really justify starting him there. But no, I think I'm bullish on a bounce back season from him. I think Hawks fans, you can't give up on this kid. Let's not forget what he did the 2023 trade deadline. He had 15 points in 23 games, looked like an NHL player. And this past season, they threw him at center at the start of the year, and that clearly ruined his confidence. And Richardson would bury him with guys like Mackenzie Entwistle on the fourth line. It's like, what's that going to do? So I think this year you have more talented guys in this roster to play with, more weapons. I think you're going to see that. I think that's going to help out Lucas. I think he's going to have that bounce back season and put up 40, 50 points. I'm pretty confident saying that.
is that the ceiling for this guy still? Or is the ceiling even
Ceiling?
higher still that you
I think
believe?
the ceiling's higher than that. I think if he works out the way they would have liked and the way they projected, I think he'd be a 60, 70 point guy. I think more of a second line player, but I think that's his ceiling, but I think it'll take us time to get up to that. But I think a lot of people looking at last season and writing him off, and I think I caution against that. I think there's still a good player there, and I think hopefully you'll see that this season. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. What else? What else is piquing your interest going into tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what the initial lines are going to look like. Because normally, like they start to play around with line combinations like right away. Who are going to be the first two guys that are on Bedard's flanks? Is it going to be Tavo and Bertuzzi? Is it going to be Kurashev and Hall? Like that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing. Like what the initial line combinations are going to look like, and see like um, who takes that spot. Because that was definitely going to be the two most coveted positions in the forward lineup is Bedard's wings. So I'm curious to see where they start off with that. Probably Kurashev. They're probably gonna he earned that role last season. They're gonna give him a chance to keep it, I think, and see if they can reclaim that chemistry and even build on it. So I think those two will probably be slated at least to start. But you gotta think they'll give Teravainen, they'll give Bertuzzi looks. I think they wouldn't mind if Hall was on that top line. That was kind of what they envisioned last year was that Hall be his flank, and that didn't work out obviously because of his injury. So maybe they give him another chance there. The point is there's options. There's so much options on this team now in terms of offense, and which is such a good problem to have that we didn't last year. So that's something I'm looking forward to watching and seeing kind of who takes that mantle and kind of steps up on this offense.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Tyler Bertuzzi does.
Yeah.
It was, I think, by most measures, an up and down season for him last
Yeah.
year. He went through stretches where he looked like one of the most snake bitten players in the league, and then there were times where things were hitting off his rear end and hitting off the shin and hitting off the wrist or whatever, and it was going in the net, and the turnaround no look shot that was meant to be a pass hits off a skate and goes in, that kind of stuff too. But this is a guy that realistically should carry expectations of himself, and even around the league as the type of player he is, as a guy that could put 30 in the net every year.
Yeah.
And now you're playing with a really dynamic young player, one of the best in the league, and you're gonna get a lot of leeway, just like you did with Austin Matthews last year. So I think like what he does is a big sticking point for me for the
Mhm.
success of this team. Like that could be an enormous difference.
X
Like
factor, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you could make a lot of teams really regret not offering up a little bit more, or even offering what the Blackhawks offered to get him into town. Um,
Yeah, I mean, he's only like 2 seasons removed from having like 30 goals, 60 points. And so, I mean, he could definitely be that type of player. No, last year, I think he had 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points, something like that. He could definitely be better than that. We know that. But he was the least, I think he was the leading scorer in the playoffs. So he definitely was better towards the end of the season when they actually paired him with Matthews consistently, which I don't know if that was always the case at the start of the year. But yeah, I think if you give him like a long leash with Bedard, like you could definitely see some good chemistry build there. I think he's kind of perfect player to flank on that line with Bedard, Kurashev, Bedard, Tava, whoever it ends up being. He could kind of get in those dirty areas, the screens, and the physicality he brings, and kind of open up lanes. Like I think he could be the perfect kind of piece in that line. He could even be the Hawks' leading scorer this year. If the amount like Bedard's passing abilities, playmaking, like he could just be setting him up left and right, like what David does with Zach Hyman. Not to that same level, but I think if Bedard has the type of season two that people are expecting, I think he could play a big role in that and kind of racking up those assists for Bedsy with the goals he can be scoring up front. So that's something I'm really looking forward to watching. Yeah.
you mean leading goal scorer, right? Not leading point scorer.
No, no, no. Bedard will be a leading point scorer by a mile, but I'm saying like he could just be. I think he'll be getting a lot of assists by like net front goals from Bertuzzi, kind of like you see with Kreider, Hyman. Like that could be kind of the role that Bertuzzi has in this team. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It'll be interesting. I guess like I said, I'm curious, about how the goaltending shakes out. They need Laurent Brossoit to have a quick recovery here.
Yes, no, we cannot suffer a Soderboom for an extended period of time, or we're fucked. So yeah, no, no, we definitely need him to have be in there as fast as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just like how a lot of these young kids show up to camp and look, um, I don't think Alex Vlasic is going to take a step back just because he was so good. I was talking on
He
my
was
show
our most
today.
underrated player. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking on my show today though about Thomas Harley, and he got a 2-year extension with Dallas, who like I said, but what I mentioned about Harley was the big thing now for him is to do it again, right? You did it
Hmm.
once. You had 47. You almost had 50 points from the back end last year, 15 goals, and Vlasic didn't even have that kind of offensive production, and not really that's his game. Harley's more offensive than him anyways, but sticking to and maintaining what made you successful this year, like in what is really your second full season in the National Hockey League, sophomore slump, second year, whatever, second year drag, whatever you want to call it. So how a player like that shows up, I mentioned to you guys on Monday, I'm really high on Isaac Phillips. I've been really high on him for a lot. I've had a lot of in-person viewings of this guy. How he shows up to camp, Nolan Allen is like a guy you spent a first round draft pick on. Del Mastro's a second rounder, right? So how some of these guys, show up to camp is really going to be a big deal for me.
Yeah, I
Um,
think sorry, I think kind of build off of that. I think that's the battle for that kind of that seventh D spot will be interesting because I think we have that top six settled. It's going to be Vlasic Jones. I think it's going to be Kevin Murphy. I know some people think Korchinski could be Rockford. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. I think he'll be in the Hawks. And yeah,
yeah,
then the third line is Martinez Brody. So who takes that seventh spot? And there's a lot of options there. I was thinking, yeah, Levshon could be in play, but that injury maybe not. Kaiser, I think is probably the main guy. I'd say, and like you said, Phillips could be in there. Delmastra played a couple games last season. Allen. So there's a lot of options there. Who takes that mantle? My guess is it's Kaiser, but we'll see. But in regards to Alex Vlasic, you talked a lot about him. I love that guy. I can't say enough good things about Vlasic, and I think you'll just see him keep getting better this season. I mean, say what you will about Seth, like he just worked so well with Vlasic. That was a genuinely good deep pair. It was the one good deep pair we had last season. Our defense was atrocious after that. Um, I mean, I don't need to talk about how bad that third pair was. And, Kevin had his rookie struggles, but
yeah.
that's to be expected from a 19-year-old. But the Vlasic Jones deep pair was our one consistent option that really was good last season. I think you'll see him just keep getting better. And yeah, Vlasic, I think one of the more underrated defensive defensemen in the league. Nobody in the NHL sphere really seems to, and media really seems to talk about him that much. But us Hawks fans know how good he is. I think he's just going to keep getting better. He's a great skater. I think he has an offensive side of his game that's untapped. I think you haven't seen
Yeah.
it yet, but I would not be surprised if we saw more of that this season. I think he's been working on his shot. He's been working more on like passing, things like that. So I think there's definitely a side of this game there. I'm not saying he's going to be like an outstanding two-way defenseman. I think he is more of a defensive guy like Jalmerson, but I would not be shocked to see him kind of show more this season with more weapons on the team around him. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I also wanted to say too is, the interesting part about this too that I'm now just like having a come to realization moment is that there is no like some part of this, like looking at the training camp roster, is like some of the guys that they have in the system that like aren't at camp too. Like the Oliver Moores
Oh, a
and
lot of college
the
players. Yeah.
Sasha Boyver.
Yeah.
Like those are, Oliver Moore, I think, will probably play NHL games at the end of this season, hopefully.
I would
If
hope
you're,
so. Just like Nazar last year. I hope that's the plan. Yeah.
yeah. I think that kid is really, really dynamic and
Mhm.
really like
So fast,
that's probably the
blazingly
Bedard line
fast.
mate
Yeah.
for the next 10 years. Like that's
Yeah. I
your
mean,
Hosa ish, like different game, obviously, but
he's a center, but I think they want to move him to the wing with
yeah.
Bedard for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that interests me. I mean, this prospect pool is just so deep. I want to see how guys like Nick Lardis do with the big boys. I think it's disappointing for me that Merrick Van Acker is hurt.
Yeah.
That would have been a really, because that was such an off the board pick. But then you did the scouting research and you're like, holy cow, maybe
Oh,
this
I
kid
think
should have
that's
gone
gonna be a
sooner.
great pick. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, the fact he put up like 80 points in juniors last season while being injured, that's insane. So
fairly
he got
quietly
yeah.
too. Like he wasn't on a
Yeah.
ton of people's radars.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about him when we drafted him. I was like, "Who is this guy?" But then I started researching. I'm like, "Oh, we might have a steal here." Plus, he was Lars' teammate too, so I think that helped. They scouted him a lot because they were there to scout Lardis, so they happened to see him. So, yeah, I think him and Lardis definitely two are more underrated prospects. And there's a lot of prospects like that in our system who just have so much promise and like there's just so much potential there. A lot of intrigue. It's not a lot of certainties, but there's a lot of maybes, and that's a good. I think quantity is definitely not something that's lacking in this prospect pool. So, and I mentioned this with Kurashev. Bedard elevates players. I know people complain about, oh, we don't have enough elite forward prospects, but it's like Bedard makes guys around him better. We see that with Kurashev. He was a 20-point guy in this league until Bedard showed up, and now he looks like it could be a top six threat. So I think you're going to see that. There's so much pieces like Roman Kancerov's another one, like Ryan Green, Gavin Hayes, just a lot of just solid prospects who probably would be middle sixers in a lot of teams. So maybe they could be top sixers here. You don't know. Like you have a lot of options, and options is never a bad thing to have for sure.
Ryder Rolston too is another guy that intrigues me out of Notre Dame. Right? He went to Notre Dame. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was there with Slaggert. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the Notre Dame to Chicago Blackhawks pipeline. I think, and this is another discussion that we can get into another day. But one of my gripes is that there's no Division I college hockey here, which I think is a big miss for the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago.
It's absolute bullshit that the University of Illinois or Northwestern doesn't have a team.
Or DePaul, or
absolute travesty. Because Illinois is such a good hockey state. I think it's up there. I think after the Big Four, Massachusetts, Minnesota, like Michigan, New York, like I think Illinois might be fifth. If they're definitely back half top 10 worst, but I think it could be fifth best hockey state, to be honest. That might be an out there take, but
I don't
they're
think
up
it's
there.
an out there take.
No.
And if you look at if you were to look at a map of all the Division I college hockey programs, I don't mean to do a little pivot here, but I just, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. I've talked about on my own program a little bit for anybody that is a listener from last season. So first of all, a little Chicago hockey history here on Chicago Hockey Radio. For those that don't know, there did used to be Division I hockey here that the UIC Flames, and I need to get my information right, but the UIC Flames did ice a Division I program for a number of years back in the 80s and 90s, I want to say. I will look up when their last season was. And they did, in fact, have NHL alumni. They had 4 NHL players make the NHL from the UIC Flames: Wade Campbell, Sean Cronin, Mike Krasinski, and Ray Stazik. And some guys who played, Sean Cronin played 292 games in the NHL, and Wade Campbell played 213 games in the NHL. So, and one of them played, and Mike Krasinski played for the Blackhawks for 1 game. So, I think it's pretty cool. I think the city needs something like that. And the other thing too, I just imagine if DePaul had a Division I hockey team, right? And then Oliver Moore. Yeah, it means something to be a Minnesota Golden Gopher, totally, just like it means something to be a BC Eagle and um, a BU Terrier, some like a Maine Black Bear. Like those are programs that are like steeped in tradition. But like how likely of it do you think if UIC or DePaul or University of Chicago had a team or Northwestern that the Hawks would be like, "Hey Oliver, you should go here." You know what I mean? Like so we could watch you every day, you know? Like you get to be in the city, you get to be doing your thing and playing hockey and they can have eyes on you all the time. I just think it's a slam dunk. I didn't mean to go on such a side tangent there.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's a good. I think that's a good point, though. I think there's so much more untapped potential in Illinois hockey. I mean, Chicago hockey in general, especially, is like it's such a powerhouse now. Like I think it's generally one of the like brightest like in the country. I mean, I played a bit, and I was always on the lower teams, but I thought I was a pretty decent player. But it just goes to show like how good like Chicago hockey is. There's so much good high schools and like there's a large breadth of talent in this state that's being that unfortunately isn't able to play at the highest levels here because there's no program. So. No, I think it's a travesty that like, I think Illinois Northwestern should have teams. There's no reason they shouldn't. So hopefully that's something in the future we see. I feel like we keep hearing teasings about that Illinois is thinking of getting a team, but they never do. So and Northwestern too, because they're right in Chicago, make a lot of sense. Or you said Nepal. There's a
well, I
lot of
know
options.
UIC
Yeah,
or not UIC. I know University of Illinois was close. They did a
they were
feasibility
close. Yeah,
study. They did a
yeah.
feasibility study. I know that COVID was a big derailment in what they were trying to do with getting a Division One hockey program there. And what I also know is that their feasibility study for the University of Illinois had plans for construction of a hockey rink on campus.
They do have a hockey rink on campus, but maybe you mean like a
Yeah,
college.
I think they were
Yeah.
going to put a newer one on campus
Okay.
for
Yeah.
like a Division One level
Okay.
program, and so that never got off the ground with COVID happening, and so neither did that. But yeah, I agree. I agree. UIC's last hockey season too was the 95-96 season, which was sadly their second or third worst season in college hockey. They did not have a good year, but yeah, just this is fun Chicago hockey stuff.
Yeah.
So back to well, you know what? Let's do this right now while we're on just not the Blackhawks in particular, but maybe just like Chicago hockey in general. This program is called Chicago Hockey Radio. That is more for trademark and licensing, and not
Yeah.
wanting to
So we don't get cease and
infringe on
desist
any.
letters. We don't want that.
Yeah. No infringing on copyrights here. Um, but no, I figured that this, we want this to be a place where I would assume, I think it's safe for us to assume that a majority of the hockey fans in Chicago are Blackhawks fans. So if you're listening to Chicago Hockey Radio, most of the time, I think you're going to like care about what we say in the first hour of the show. And if you really don't care about what we have to say in the first hour of the show, then you probably will in the second hour when we touch on the rest of the NHL. So,
Yeah.
but I do think, we are trying to grow into this space. We have a lot of fun ideas, the show is doing all right, like we are hoping to grow it more too, but the dynamic too of like hockey in Chicago, the dynamic of us hosting this show is sometimes what the landscape looks like outside of it too, So I mentioned this to you, we were talking about it. I broke it on my show as soon as I read it on Instagram. I started talking about Charlie Romeliotis going to
That's right. Yeah.
WGN, and
The Greek god.
yeah, I mean he's really good at what he like. He's one of the best, man, at what he does. Especially in this city, you could argue he is the best.
I think he's a top Hawks insider. I mean, I always think of
Yeah,
him like Ben Pope and like Scott Powers and guys like that. But
Mark
Romelio's
Lazarus, you know.
Lazarus always thought like he's kind of the top guy. Charlie, it's good to see him get a big role like that. It is a shame what happened with NBC Sports Chicago shutting down and this new network coming in, Chicago Sports Network, and we only know so much about it. It seems like who knows what it's going to be like. I mean, it's hard, it can be hard to top the quality that NBC Sports Chicago was, and Meliodas is a big part of that. So it's good to see him getting a spot at the radio. It's a good team there. Weideman, Troy Murray, and he's the host. So that'll be a good connection there. And then I like what we got going with the TV side of things with Ping, and I'm so glad we don't have to deal with Vosters this season. We got Mark
Rick
we
Ball.
got Ball. Yeah, Rick Ball, my bad, is the lead guy. So did a lot of good things with the Flames, and Hockey Night in Canada definitely seems like a really renowned voice, and so looking forward to
Hey
seeing what he has to
Raven,
bring. And, yeah.
can we get some sorry, but can we get some info maybe on this like NBC Sports Chicago shutting down? Like just because I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about it, maybe I could do a little research while we're sitting here
Yeah,
talking.
it shuts down at the end of September. Then the Chicago Sports Network starts October 1st. So, I mean, it's the first few games. I think the Hawks will have the first preseason game September 25th on their website. I don't know what the other two games the plan is, if they're just not going to be able to watch them or we're just going to have to listen to them. Who knows? But Yeah, we only know so much. I think it'll be on like Direct TV is what I saw. I'm like available locally, like in like local networks in Chicago, but will it be on YouTube TV is the question I have because that's my thing. So maybe I'll have to. I might be having to watch on ESPN Plus this season to watch Hawks games. We'll see, or find a bunch of illegal streams or something. But yeah, the lack of information right now, especially so close to the season, is a little concerning. I know we started here a little more, but we'll see how that works out.
So, but NBC Sports Chicago was the rights holder for the games.
Yeah.
So so now those like that those rights are just automatically absorbed by
Oh, they're
this.
done. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I think so.
But that means they're gonna be on this Chicago sports network, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So from what I'm seeing, it says that the new network promises a fresh approach to sports broadcasting with a focus on innovative content and enhanced fan engagement, while the specific streaming services that will carry CHSN haven't been officially announced. The expectations is that they will be widely available, ensuring that Chicago sports fans can continue to follow their favorite teams. So from what it makes it sound like, it is going to be, YouTube TV, Amazon, stuff like that.
That's
I hope
interesting.
so. Yeah.
So it's Bulls games and White Sox games too, because I guess
Yeah.
the White
Because Ryan
Sox
Storff owners, they're owned by the
Yeah.
same guy. Yeah.
and then the Cubs are on Marquee, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting because it does, matter to what we're doing here. Like we are trying to
yeah.
capitalize on the hockey space here, not just with this show, but with, the morning show and with the Kings show and with any other hockey content. Like I would love to get a women's hockey show on here eventually, and it's almost like, we want to be in a spot where we're eventually like players for a guy like Charlie Romeliotis, trying to get him in the mix here. And, imagine how much better if we subbed me out for Charlie Romeliotis on Chicago Hockey Radio. You guys would take this to the moon right here and just, but like,
No, you're great, man. We love it. We love having you.
yeah,
so.
thanks, bud. No, but it is an interesting move. Like I was surprised when I heard it was WGN, and honestly, I don't really know why he didn't stay with the Chicago Sports Network, like this new venture that's happening. I don't know why he didn't stick around. Maybe the WGN was paying a little bit more. Maybe it was, offering him something a little bit more similar. Maybe the offer wasn't even there from the Chicago
I think it's
Sports Network
because
to
I think it's
return.
because a spot open there on the radio. I think Joe Brand, who was the host, left for the Penguins, so they had an opening, and I imagine Meliodas would have been like their top guy. I imagine, like you said, they probably gave the checkbook to him, and yeah, so I think that plays a part in it. But I know some guys in that network are staying. I know Pat Boyle's staying for the CHSM, which is good. I think Chelios is staying as well, Kaylee Chelios, and then Granado as well. So pretty much all those guys are staying, but then Meliodas, yeah, jumping ship.
And how about Rick Ball too? Like,
Yeah.
you
Really excited for him.
Well, yeah, but like you leave Sportsnet, which is arguably like the top dog when it comes to like media and hockey, and you go to a company that then announces that they're rebranding into something else and shutting down really entirely. He probably knew about it a little bit. Now that I'm thinking about it, he probably knew what was going on. But even still, I think that's such an interesting move. And, I've spoken with Charlie before a couple of times. Like, he's a really nice guy, but nothing but really kind to me. I leaned on him for some advice as I was like just beginning my career into hockey, into the professional world. And he offered nothing but kind words. So, I wish him all the best. I just, I think it's such an interesting move. And as far as Chicago hockey goes, like that's about as big of news as you could get. And the fact that like, hey, the biggest guy that does this, I respect Scott
Local
Powers
guy too, right? Like he went to Elmhurst, and I think he grew up around here, right?
Yeah. But like those guys are more like the Scott Powers of the world, Mark Lazarus. Those guys are more like long form journalism kind of guys, in my opinion. Like that's what I think of. Like if I'm thinking of Mark Lazarus, it's like, oh, I'm going to read this like long story that he did or this thing that he covered because he probably covered it better than anybody else. Where it's like, oh, what's happening in practice right now with the Blackhawks? It's like, oh, you're looking at Charlie's stuff, right? So yeah, they got a good one. WGN
For sure.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna take a quick break here. That'll do it for the Hawks Hour for today, and we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will dive right into the rest of the National Hockey League's training camps. Open up today for testing. Everybody hits the ice tomorrow. We'll be right back. Keep it here.
All right. Sweet. Congrats to Big Dick Nick.
are back, guys.
All right, welcome back to Chicago Hockey Radio NHL Hour. Thank you for everybody that's been tuning in, whether you are on live or you are not. Yeah, thank you for sticking around. All right, so the NHL Hour. I mentioned we would talk about the Dallas Stars, and I think maybe we should just start there. Couple of signings there yesterday. We mentioned as soon as I saw it that Jason Robertson will not be available during camp. So there is that situation. He will be missing camp, but Essel Lindell signs a 5-year extension at 5.25, and Thomas Harley gets a 2-year extension. So another RFA that was poised to miss camp is back on the board, or off the board, I guess, and ready to go for today and tomorrow. Dallas, thoughts on the Harley contract, first of all, from you, Justin?
Yeah, what's the term on that again?
I think it's $4 million a season for 2 years.
Oh, it seems like a steal then, because I mean he's really broken out this past season or so. I think that's definitely a guy there that has immense potential in that blue line. I think about him and Haskin, like what they could bring to the table on that blue line. He could definitely play a big role in the Stars' hopefully Cup aspirations this season. They were close last season. I think they've been close the past few years, but they're close to breaking through. And I think Harley will play a big part in that. Definitely has a bright future. And yeah, $4 million. I mean, that's sounds like a pretty good deal to me. I mean, Faber's making what, 8? So yeah, I'm not saying he's Faber, but yeah, I mean. How much years is on that too, by the way?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. So he'll get the bag in 2 years then, you have to think. So it's kind of one of those bridge deals, but I think it's pretty fair, but probably could have got a little more, but yeah.
Yeah, I said this on my show this morning, and I said it, I think, briefly, earlier when I brought it up, but it's like can you do this again?
Yeah.
Can you do what you did, or was last season a huge PDO bender for you? There were a lot of moments where he was like really clutch in some overtime games. He had a few overtime winners that were really sick. And they've always wanted him to be this player. Like I remember them having him around in the bubble when they went to the final. And I don't think he played, but he was around the team and practicing. He was like a black ace for the entirety of that run. And he was young. I think he was like 19 years old when that was the case. And I remember that being like a really big experience thing for Thomas Harley. And then, the year I spent working in the AHL, Thomas Harley was almost exclusively in the American Hockey League. And so I got to watch him live maybe 5 different times. And, sometimes I'd be like, oh my God, like how is this guy not in the National Hockey League? And then other times, a lot of his stuff left much to be desired too. So, I think the thing that was holding Thomas Harley back for a little bit was the consistency issue. And, now you had this unbelievable season and, I get it. You didn't, if you think about, gambles, maybe I know that like St. Louis is in a different spot than Dallas right now, as far as like challenging for the Stanley Cup and how valuable cap space is to you. But, it's a gamble giving a guy like Philip Broberg that amount of money, right? On an offer sheet.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's unproven. I mean, Harley's, it's only one season, but he already has that to show for it. But Broberg doesn't really have anything to show for that so far.
You're going off what you saw in like 10 playoff games.
Exactly.
With Philip Broberg. And the expectation last season, at the start of last season, this time last year, was that Philip Broberg needs to be in the NHL lineup. Like, it's a failure if he's not in the National Hockey League lineup. And then he wasn't, and then he was, and now he's making four and change. He's making more now actually this season than Thomas Harley will, who scored 47 points in the NHL last year. Like I said, I just think that the big issue for me is like, is he going to be able to do it again? And the reason I keep asking it is because I think part of me thinks the answer is no. That he
sophomore slump is a big thing.
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah. Guys, teams that maybe didn't have that eye on you that they had last season. Like I think Bedard is going to experience part of it. I think he's good enough to overcome that. But
generational talent. I think it doesn't really apply to players like him. But we'll see. I mean, he has more
nobody
experience.
Was taking Bedard lightly. Nobody was taking him lightly before last season. Everybody knew who Connor Bedard was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he has more experience to go off of, but yes, players might know his tendencies more, but I think Bedard will adjust too. So, and plus he's got a way better team. So I'm not really worried about that. Yeah.
Do you think Dallas is like a true blue Stanley Cup threat?
Oh yeah. And I just let's speak about all the young talent they have there. I mean, Wyatt Johnston, what a rise he had last season. Then you have like the first full season of Logan Stankoven, and I know they did lose Pavelski, but that's about it. I mean, that team is about the same, and I really like what they got going there. Just a depth. I mean, they have like three lines that like some of them like so their third line could be some teams' first lines. I mean, you got Sagan, Duchesne down there, and Marchman. It's like it's just such a deep roster. I think you'll see a better season. I know we just said Robinson might be out for a bit, but when he does come back, hopefully he doesn't miss. He said he's out for just training camp, not that. Will he miss any time
Yeah, it
during the
seems
season?
like he should even be back for part of training camp, but I don't know that they're
Okay.
really counting on it right now.
Well, yeah, I think you'd expect a better season out of him too. But no, I think that's just such a deep roster. Everything. The defense is great too. And then yeah, I got Otter and net. I mean, it's just there's really no weaknesses there. I'd say it's them and the Oilers in the West. I'd say though that's a top two, and maybe the Avs are three. Then Vancouver fourth. Yeah.
Do you think Wyatt Johnston could make Team Canada for the Four Nations thing?
I think he'll be in the conversation. If he could build off of what he did last year. I mean, he was a 65 points last year or something. In the playoffs, he was
Something like
probably
that.
maybe been their best player in the playoffs, or at least their most clutch. So I think he'll be in the mix. But I mean, it's Canada. There's so much competition. He's not going to beat out a guy like Bedsy. So we'll see. But I think he could be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, Bedard will certainly be on that
Yeah,
team.
he's on that team. We already know it. Yeah.
That's going to be unbelievable hockey. Yeah, you're right. He had 65 points last year, right on the money. 32 goals,
Wow.
33 assists.
I threw that out my ass too.
Yeah, no, you're right on the money, my man. Yeah, I like Dallas a lot. You know, would I have given Thomas Harley $4 million? I don't know if that was the only way he was going to come to camp. You just have to think too with this. You know, like what was he asking for? If that was what they settled on, was he asking for like
Probably asking for more. Probably five.
five and a half? You know,
Yeah,
at
I
the
would think
start.
so. Yeah, it was actually a little less than I expected, but I mean, he doesn't have a lot to go off of. So, but Vlasic's making 4.6 for 6 years, and Faber's after one season's already got eight. So, from that standpoint, maybe it's less than he would have thought, but yeah.
That's fair. The other RFA that fell off the board, which was immediately after we recorded. It was actually while
Yeah,
we were
Lucas
recording,
Raymond.
and then I
Yeah, we
started
did see it.
talking.
Nobody saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody was on their phone. I am making sure I am on my phone
Although I
today.
did say it was going to happen. I said, yeah, they're going to get it settled. So I'm going to take some credit for predicting the future there, even though it probably happened after I said, but whatever. We'll say it happened
No.
after.
I think it might have happened. It might have happened like the second you were.
It probably
talking
happened
about it,
while I was
honestly.
talking about it. I spoke into existence. You're welcome, Red Wings fans. So now
Yeah.
the question is when Cider happened. That's probably going to happen during this show too, if we keep the trend going. But who knows? But no, Lucas Raymond, that's big for them. I mean, I love his game. 8 million. So I mean, it probably means Cider. He has a little bit of room to work with now with that contract. Will it be 8.7? Will it be more? Who knows? But or will it be the same as Raymond? But no, I think 8 million is pretty fair for Raymond. I think right now it might seem like much, but I think in a few years, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's just going to keep getting better. I think 72 points last year, something like that, was probably the Red Wings, maybe their best player after maybe Larkin. But I think he's just going to keep getting better. So clutch, so skilled. It's just what he brings to the table on that team. Yeah, I think he's going to be really fun to watch. One of the best under 23 players in the league. And everybody loves Raymond for a reason. And I think, no, it's good to see them get that done.
Was that intended?
Yeah, I see what he did there.
Everybody loves Raymond.
Oh yeah, I know. That's a thing they said a lot. Like I remember Ken and Mick would say that on the broadcast. I watch a lot of Red Wings games because of Kaner, so that's how I know all this Red Wings stuff.
That's so fair. You and Lee both. Lee, I think we mentioned off the hop, but Lee is not in here today. But
Yeah,
we expect
we
him
miss
to be.
him.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
miss him, but
He'll
we
be
expect
back.
him to be back on
Yeah.
Friday. Yeah, I like the Raymond contract. I said to you guys on Monday that I thought that this had the potential to entirely derail the whole season for the Red Wings, much like Swayman and Bot. Like if you had both of those guys missing camp,
Oh yeah.
just how important camp is, I think, for hockey players is like the idea is missed out on sometimes because like I don't know, like I think all of us we cheer for players, I don't think we're like, I know we're like cheering for teams a little bit too, but it's not because you like particularly love the owners of any of these teams. It's not like we're really out here cheering for billionaires, like I'm more so cheering for players.
Yeah.
And I just think that you want guys to like get as much as you can and really like hold firm in what you believe in. Like I really respect what Jeremy Swayman's doing. I don't know if you saw that conversation that he did. It was like some live podcast he did where he was talking about how he like can't take less. Like it's not like he can't take less because it's on him as a goalie to the other goalies to take as much as you possibly can because another general manager if Swayman took less, would use that in another negotiation with another goaltender, which Jeremy Swayman doesn't believe is fair.
All these contracts have ripple effects. The players out of positions. You always look at the terms that players are making at their age and their salary and just their position. Everything has a number that kind of set an over under where it should be. So,
but at
yeah,
some point,
Swayman's
you
contract's
just got
going
to
to
go to
affect other
camp.
goalies.
At some point, you just got to go to camp. Like if Mo Seider misses camp, I could see him having a really down season, like a real down season.
And they need him. That defense desperately needs him. I mean, he's like the one, like, if there's a weakness of the Red Wings, right, it's their defense. After Seider, it's like, I don't know what it is. Like, I look at that, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of
they really need
play guys that they've overpaid.
They really need Seider to sign soon. I think now that Raymond has, I think he probably will. I have to think that's kind of, you just logically speaking, you think it gets done pretty soon. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting contract. I think, Steve Yzerman's top priority now is getting Seider locked up. And, and I don't know if, like, do you think the Seider one comes in higher than that? Like, I think the most surprising thing about the Raymond contract was that it was 8 years at that number, which is such a good, like, that number in 4 years.
Yeah, Seider might not be 8. Yeah.
I could see Seider being like a 5-year deal that's even higher, like an 8.5.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, with Raymond's kind of signing less than the 8.7, 700,000, that kind of gives a little room to work with. So I wouldn't be surprised if Seider asked for a little more, like probably like you said, maybe 8.5, 9. But but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not 8 years like Raymond for the reasons you stated. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Red Wings are really interesting, man. How do you think, I mean, I know we left our Hawks hour and are on our NHL hour right now. But what do you think about the Hawks Red Wings rivalry? And maybe I should have saved this question for Lee here too, but let's get it out of the way. Like, obviously it's not what it was maybe, even a decade ago, but and maybe this is like a larger question too of like, who are the Hawks rivals to you? Is it St. Louis is the main one, but just like, what do you think about that? I mean, they only play like twice a year now, right? And maybe, we could open this up into like, should the NHL do like rivalry games where like,
bring Wednesday night rivalry back. Yeah.
Chicago plays Columbus twice a year, but maybe they play the Red Wings like 3 or 4 times a year. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's an absolute to answer your question. I think it's an absolute travesty that they're they're not in the same division or conference anymore. I know why. I know it's the time zones, blah blah blah, travel. It's hard, but like it's hard for everybody. I think just having these two teams, they should be in the same division. I don't want to say it ruined the rivalry. It's still there. I mean, you watch the Kane return game in Chicago. It's very clear that this rivalry is still a thing. The Detroit sucks chance still exists. So I also think the Red Wings should have been there with a Roman Classic opponent because that's what it was in 2009 at Wrigley. I think it would have been cool to have the Hawks versus Wings, Bedard versus Kane. I think that would have been pretty interesting. I know the Blues are our current biggest rival, but it's like that's not going to go away. We're in the same division. I think trying to revitalize that Hawks Wings rivalry would have been a good move by the NHL, which is still there, but it's not the same. And I think that's really a shame because it used to be one of the best rivalries in hockey, and now it's just it's not gone, but it's not the same as it was. 2013 is kind of when it ended. That's when they switched it. When Seabrook scored that OT winner in Game 7, and then they moved the Wings to the Eastern Conference. That was kind of that last moment, but I think it's too bad. But I think to answer your other question, I think Blues probably our biggest rival right now. And after that, I only know who our second biggest rival is, to be honest. I feel like the Blues are kind of our main one, but I mean, when you're rebuilding kind of like this, those things kind of tend to go away. But once you get better, they come back. So we'll see.
I know this is a Hawks show, so like dissing on the Hawks too much, but probably isn't the vibe we should be taking. But I would say Colorado maybe, but like that seems to be kind of a one-sided rivalry.
Yeah, no, that is not. Yeah, that's not a rivalry. They always kick our ass.
Yeah. So, but that could be a fun
maybe the
rivalry.
Preds, maybe. Yeah.
Preds too. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think the Sharks is going to be a good one because we're kind of on similar trajectories right now, same conference. I think in a few years, Bedard, Celebrini, that's going to be a heck of a rivalry. I think we have the two brightest futures in the West right now. Also, Ducks, another one. That could be a good 3-way fight for many years. So I think you'll see that come back as the way it was in the 2010s. I think we'll be kind of the teams in the West that are prevalent and dominating.
Getting some more captain news here. The Tampa Bay Lightning have just announced.
Oh, no way. Another...
As
Hedman.
Victor Hedman.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, not surprised by that. I think he's the longest tenured guy there, and he's been an anchor on that blue line for many years. Great leader. It's going to be hard to fill the shoes of Stamkos, but I mean, if anybody could, it's Hedman. In that same funny commercial, I remember, I forget what it was. I don't know if it was it what was that commercial they were in together? You know what I'm
Oh, the
talking about?
Stamkos one with
Yeah, they aired that so many times.
I don't know. It was maybe it was like some credit union thing, but it was like the one with
Yeah.
the kids, and he's like, oh, like
So yeah,
maybe
it's funny to
he's
see
not ready
them
yet or
passing the
whatever.
torch. Yeah,
Maybe
but no, I
hockey's not
think
for him.
yeah, but no, I think no, it's a good move. And yeah, no, I think the Lightning they'll be an interesting team to watch this year. I mean, without Stamkos, a franchise guy, kind of similar to Kane leaving the Hawks. It's hard to imagine Stamkos in another uniform with the Predators, but that's the way it's going to be. And can Gensel kind of replicate that production and kind of fill that spot? It'll be interesting to see what Tampa. They're a very top heavy team. They got Point, they got good guys like that. But then is the depth there? I'm not sure. We'll see. But they'll be fun to watch. Interesting to watch.
Yeah, it looks like, or according to this release from the Lightning, Nikita Kucherov and Ryan McDonough are going to wear A's. So, and how interesting is that? Like that Nashville trades Ryan McDonough back to Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
and then uses that cap space to go out and sign their captain to a
Yeah.
contract that the Lightning wouldn't give Stamkos. And
Yeah, I mean, if you're Steven Stamkos, you're probably seeing that and thinking, "What the hell, man?" I mean, it just gives him more motivation. I think if there's a player in the league this season that has more motivation than Steven Stamkos, I'd challenge you to find him. I think he's definitely going to take some of this personally. I think so. Yeah, we'll see.
How can you
Predators,
not take this personally?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I think the way they treat him, the way that's not right. Honestly, I think with what he gave that organization. So
They
no,
gave
I think
Hedman the same extension too.
yeah. Why is Hedman deserving and not Stamkos? The question I have.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but congrats to Victor Hedman. I do think it's it is the choice now. Like you weren't going to make somebody else a captain. So
Yeah, from what's there now, I mean, I think ideally it would have kept Stamkos, and yeah, he would still be the captain. But yeah, I mean, for what's here now and the situation that they themselves have put themselves in, yeah, I think either him or Kucherov, I think Hedman being the longest tenured guy makes sense. Yeah.
11th captain in Lightning history, dude. Maybe on Friday. No, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do for Friday's show. But I have an idea. So a fun content idea, but I will keep that in my back pocket for the Hawks Hour on
I'm excited.
So a few other news and notes here. I wanted to mention Phil Kessel. I did write down Phil Kessel. I think I just might have written the name Phil Kessel on the sheet for us today, but no, I didn't actually. What I said was, quote, "Do you think there is room for Phil Kessel on an NHL roster?" So, Justin Lynch, do you think there is room for Phil Kessel on an NHL roster?
I mean, I think he should still be playing. I don't know if there's any room for him. I think some teams, maybe like Columbus, I mean, they'll have space there. Maybe they could bring him on. But yeah, I think Kessel should still be playing the NHL. The fact that he isn't is a travesty. I mean, he's like what 8 points away from 1,000. He had that Iron Man streak going, but that ended. Yeah, I mean, is he?
It's still going.
Is he washed? Yes, but like I still think he could be a solid bottom six piece and a leader for a team. It's just a good story. I mean, fans love Phil Kessel. I mean, if you're an NHL team, why wouldn't you want to get that like extra kind of like press going and like media stuff? I think Kessel would help out a lot of fans, just kind of fan engagement and morale. So no, I think it's too bad. I hope he still finds a spot, but the fact that he didn't the entirety of last season, I have to think he's probably cooked. But I hope I'm wrong there.
I think the Iron Man streak is still going. Technically, it
Oh,
didn't
it is.
end.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, I
if he
thought
were
it
to
did. Never mind.
sign and play in a game, that streak would pick up right where it left off because he didn't play.
Never mind that.
You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. For some reason, I thought I guess he didn't miss any. Yeah. No. Okay.
But I think the
The
issue
playoffs
last
I was
season
thinking
for
of,
at
'cause
least
he
a
was on the
couple of
bench, he
teams.
turned out.
Yeah, they scratched him in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the issue for some teams even last season was like, oh, does Phil really care about this? I hear that the consensus is that he's not like trying to play to like keep the streak going. Like if whatever team signs him scratches him, he's not gonna like take it
I think
personally.
he just
might
wants to
take
be
it
back in the
personally, but-
NHL. Like he's already has
Yeah.
the record. I think that is what it is. Like I think he realizes, yeah, if I'm on the lineup every night, that's okay. I could just play a role in this team and just be in the NHL. I think he's still a good enough NHL player. That's yeah.
I don't know how and also just for like the locker room too, of maybe some of these younger clubs, like maybe like a Buffalo, I'm thinking, or maybe a Utah, right? Like, how do you
Yeah,
not,
why wouldn't you want to bring a guy like that in? Is my
yeah.
question. Yeah, I was so surprised the Hawks didn't last season. I thought there was an opportunity there. Obviously, there aren't now because such a logjam. But I thought
Yeah.
he would have been kind of a good story last year. But oh well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you got to get Phil Kessel signed to an NHL deal at some point, and if not, maybe that is the last that we've seen of him was
Yeah,
him
too
raising the
bad
Stanley
then.
Cup.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's a good way to go though. It's a good way to go.
I do too. Did you see? Speaking of Utah, did you see the clip of Clayton Keller saying that it sounds like the name of the club is going to be Yeti? Did you see that?
If so, if he's right, hopefully he's not just teasing that, but that'd be great. I think that'd be a perfect name for them, the Utah Yetis. That could be a good rivalry with Columbus or not Columbus, Colorado too, because they kind of got like that Yeti like kind of shoulder patch going on their jersey, so or Bigfoot, whatever that is. But no, I think that could be a good name for them. It's a shame this year they're just Utah, but next year, hopefully they'll get that settled and yeah, Yetis. That could be a fun name. I was kind of hoping to be the Powder. I thought that could be pretty interesting, but yeah, Yetis. I think that's the next best option there.
You know what my pick was? It was Caribou. That's my pick.
Caribou. Oh,
Caribou.
okay.
I
You
saw
don't,
it on
you're,
the list. I don't
you
know.
don't see a lot of caribou in other sports scenes. Um, yeah,
What would
that'd be
your
cool.
pick be if you were, you're Ryan Smith?
The Utah Mormons. I'm just joking. No, honestly, I think Yetis is great. I think that's the move. Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, fair
Definitely
enough.
not the hockey club. Anything but the hockey club or hockey team. Like, what is this? What is this nonsense? Like, get an actual name. But yeah, next year that should be pretty cool.
You don't like the hockey club thing at all? I mean,
Well,
I
it's,
don't
this is
really,
this
but
isn't soccer. Like we're not in the Premier League here. What's this hockey club? I don't know. I mean, it works for this year. The jersey is actually kind of cool to be honest. I feel like the renderings are kind of mid, but like seeing them actually on the players and on the ice it actually looks pretty cool. So I think it works for this year. Yeah,
I like the light sharp blue that they're using and
it's
all
a good
that.
scheme. It works. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
This is also coming from Stan Bowman right now, confirming Evander Kane will have surgery, saying he'll be out for a while, but that they don't feel the need to put him on LTIR.
Oh, Stan Bowman of all people not using LTIR. That's interesting. He must not be out for that long then. But normally surgery. I mean, what kind of surgery is this if he's not LTIR?
Yeah, and it seemed like this could have been a longer term healing process for him.
Hmm.
So
Very interesting.
I don't really know why you wouldn't choose to use
And
LTIR.
they could use that cap space too, man. Oh, that's very, very curious.
I think maybe because, as you start as the season goes on, you're accruing cap space more and more too.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to accrue cap space, or I'm not like super refreshed on my CBA right now. But yeah, I need to do some brushing up on my CBA. But I think that if he's on LTIR, it doesn't start accruing cap space for you.
Okay.
I could be incorrect on that, but I don't think I am. So. Yeah. Doesn't look like he'll be missing that much time. All right. Well, do you have anything else for NHL hour? I think we're gonna do a bit of a shorter NHL hour today.
Yeah. Is there
Before
anything else? I think. Oh yeah, didn't Tyler Ennis retire or something? I think I
Tyler
saw
Ennis
something like
did
that.
retire.
Yeah, the Short King. I always remember him like a 2010s, like kind of under the radar legend. So definitely sad to see him go. But yeah,
He was a good player. He was really
he
fun to
was.
watch,
Yeah.
and could put the puck in the back of the net. I mentioned today that it looked like the career was over there for a little bit for Tyler Ennis. Like it looked like he was just kind of done after, because I remember him going from Buffalo to Minnesota and him having some success there, and then it trailed off, and then he went to Toronto, and everybody was kind of like, "What's going on here with Tyler Ennis?" And then he really had a resurgence, and then went and had a nice time in Edmonton, and was pretty good in Ottawa when he was there too, and
Yeah.
you know.
He was always like a useful player, for sure. Definitely a staple kind of those bottom six lineups, but had a lot of skill, even for his lack of size. So yeah.
Who are the other guys that retired? Alex Edler and Chris
Oh, that's
Weidman.
right. That just happened. Yeah,
Chris
for
Weidman
sure.
also
They've
retired
been
too.
playing for a while now, though, so that's not super surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Edler played last season.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's still funny. You hear all these retirements, and you have one guy who hasn't ever officially announced his retirement is Jonathan Tays, my boy. But we know he is. But it's so funny. Just like one of those guys just go out without ever announcing it. So maybe
Well,
we'll
hey,
still
I
hear
mean,
something. But yeah,
I mean, you're really on that. I don't know that I'm really on that. I
you,
think
you think you think he could still come back? Yeah.
I agree with you in the fact that I don't think it's very likely, but I don't think it's like 100% like,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think I don't know if he felt really good. I don't know how he's feeling either. Like
Yeah.
if he's feeling really good, maybe he wants to get back after it, or maybe he's like, hey, this is the first time I've felt this good in years. I'm going to keep it like this,
I like to see it. I like to see it, but at the same time, I'm content if he decides it's up. Like, just be a Hawk for life. That's cool with me too. Either way, I'm happy. I support whatever my former captain does, and yeah, I'm excited to see what our current captain Foligno can do.
What do you think he can do? What do you think he can do? Like, do you think like the offense, I guess, was there a little bit for Foligno? What do you have? Like
He's not going to put up the
30
numbers.
points?
Yeah, he had a good season last year, but I think it also helped with all the injuries. Like he actually played a lot of time at Bedard last season. And that definitely helped his numbers. He had a lot of top 6 minutes. You're not going to see that this year. He's going to be in the bottom 6 of all these new pieces. So he's not going to replicate that 17 goal, 20 assists, 37-point season he had, I believe. I think he'll probably be like somewhere in the 20s. Like he'll still be effective, bottom 6 there. Maybe a little bit with Dickinson or guys like that, Mikheyev, Smith, Maroon. Like he'll still be playing some good guys, but not Bedsy. So I mean, he's not gonna put up the numbers he did last year, but that's not really what we're looking for Foligno this year. It's more just what he brings on off the ice. So I'm excited to see that.
I'm looking at like a lot of these training camp rosters. Some of these teams are inviting like 7 goalies to camp.
That's interesting.
There's not enough net for
yeah. What's up
7
with that?
goalies.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of. I guess you got two pads of ice. That's almost 2 guys a net.
Yeah, I mean that'd be better than Arvid. So yeah, maybe one of those guys want to come here. That'd be fine with me.
No, I'm like the Maple Leafs one just popped up, and they have 7 goalies going to camp. The other thing about NHL training camp too, and we can wrap here on this, but
okay.
And I might have brought this point up with you. You could tell me if I have already, but I just we do so many shows around here that I don't know what I say on my show or on this show now or what. But I feel like the NHL more than any other league, who's making the team already.
Yes.
Yeah, like we kind of know what all 32 teams, like if we were to take like a lineup card sheet with the 13 forwards and 17 2 goalies, I think within a person we could get it right for all 32 teams.
Like 95% right. Maybe like one player, maybe one surprise. Yeah.
You remember that year that like Daniel Sprong made the Penguins as like an 18-year-old after they drafted him in like the 3rd round or something like that? And
Daniel Sprong, Netherlands legend, Max Verstappen. So that's hopefully we'll see what he does in Vancouver this year. But yeah, I do remember that. It's rare to see that like an 18-year-old is not really like a generational like player come in and make the team, but you just kind of see that a little more now in the NHL. Kind of more younger players kind of getting a chance, and I like to see that. I think being in the NHL is a good thing for these guys. Yeah.
All right, a brief hockey hour here on Chicago Hockey Radio, brief NHL hour here on Chicago Hockey Radio. That'll do it for us today. We will be back Friday. Download this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Subscribe to the Chicago Hockey Radio YouTube channel. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Alithio Network YouTube channel. Find this show on Spotify. If you're on Spotify, leave a 5-star rating and review on that one. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave a 5-star and a comment underneath there. We really appreciate everybody that's been along for the ride so far. Hopefully today was a bit better than Monday, and we'll only be up from there. See everybody on Friday.
Absolutely. Adios. Oh, we're good. All right.